When I first heard tailor-made freestyle, I got worried. This was before Kendrick had released anything. We were waiting on him to release something. And the fact that Drake was able to use Tupac's voice and Snoop's voice on a record, I felt like he was getting industry help and they were going to cheat. They were cheating. They were going to help him through this battle because there was no way he would do that without getting permission from Tupac's estate and from Snoop. Now, for Snoop doing it and letting him do it, I can understand that just in the spirit of a battle and in the spirit of hip hop. Go ahead, you can do it for this record, but understand I'm on this side, right? But Tupac's estate, that was hard for me to believe, but I thought maybe the industry just had the rights to be able to do it and push past the estate giving the permission. But for Drake to do it so disrespectfully and not get permission from anybody and just drop the record and use the voices in that way, if you are for hip hop culture and a real fan of the culture, this single act all by itself should have made you feel a way about Drake, and you should be on the side and be happy about what's happening to him now, because the disrespect that he showed by doing that to Tupac's legacy pretty much is completely unforgivable. Let's get into it. All right, let's get right into it. So looking back at this situation, looking back at this song in Taylor-Made Freestyle and everything we know now, a year later about how everything played out, this song, more than any songs or any subs before the battle, during the battle, or after the battle, showed how Drake felt he was so much more elevated than not only Kendrick Lamar, but everybody else in hip hop in general. To be able to get away with something like this just because you felt like doing it and not going through the proper channels to get something like this off, which probably would have been rebutted by the estate for sure. It just goes to show that Drake and his team, I think, believe they were above the rules and still do. If you go through that lawsuit, that is outside of the rules of not only hip hop and battling, but just music in general, to me, just music etiquette in general as fellow artists. Now, on its face, with all things being done correctly, right, and getting the permission and all that, it was a good strategy. It was a good strategy. It was very disrespectful, as you are to be in a battle rap, right? When we go through the lyrics, the way he tried to use I'm going to diss myself first and do it through the voice of Tupac and the voice of Snoop Dogg, it makes sense, right? It was a back-to-back type record as we were waiting on Kendrick to respond to Push-Ups, which was pretty good jabs, but still light jabs at the same time. This was just kind of trying to dogpile, but to do it with to take what could have been a really good plan and execute it in the worst way possible, in every way. It really goes to show how arrogance can derail everything you have going for you. You know what I'm saying? When we look through the lyrics, him throwing the 5'5" shots, him mentioning the Joe Budden podcast in there, but him also setting up all the angles that he would later completely deny that he told Kendrick to use, just showed that he didn't really know which way he was going, but he really thought he also had Kendrick overmatched. And I still don't, that part I'll never understand that. So when people do try to deny that Drake ever wrote anything, I do understand it from that perspective because he showed so little hip hop understanding, right? In this record in particular, because he didn't have a backup plan to if Kendrick went into these topics that he told him to diss him about anyway. Talk about him liking young girls, that's a gift from me. Heard it on the Joe Budden podcast, it's gotta be true. They told me the spirit of Machiavelli is alive in a ninja under 5'5", and it's gotta be you. So when Kendrick followed those directions to the T, he didn't have a response. That made no sense. That baffles me to this day. He just turned Karen and said, oh, he's talking about me, and then filed lawsuits and things like that. Like what you told him to do it, as many people have said 1,000 times now, all over the internet. How did you not have a backup plan for if he actually did it? And I have a lot of people who are big Drake fans in my family and friends, especially people I went to college with, people I've been knowing for 20-some years. And in the beginning, they were trying to defend all this stuff. Some of them are coming over to the right side now. They see how everything's playing out and all the information is starting to really sink in as far as who Drake maybe thinks he is, you know, as an artist, and maybe not being so much of a steward of hip hop as people thought he was, and as he kind of pretended that he was during interviews and things like that. This record, to me, more than any other, looking back at it, seeing that he got, you know, the Tupac estate filed a lawsuit against him over this record and all of those things, and UMG had to take it down. You know, I got 2 blocked notices from this record alone from YouTube, because UMG had to shut the record down because Drake did not have permission to do what he did in the record and to use those voices. That kind of disrespect to not only a legend of hip hop, but to everything that he represented, it shows, like I said, the level of egos out of the roof, just gone. You know, when you get to his third verse, when he's rapping in his own voice, and you get to when he's talking to Stupid, he says, yeah, that's the truth. I'm definitely about to come around the lane gang and let my effing bow move. Shitting on you ninjas from a whole different altitude, high in the sky like I'm Howard Hughes. The first one really only took me an hour or 2. The next one is really about to bring out the coward in you. Man, how those words came to be flipped around on Drake. Because filing a lawsuit is the most coward thing you could ever do after getting smoked in a rap battle. And then the next line when he says, but now we gotta wait a effing week because Taylor Swift is your new top. The fact that he also tried to invoke Taylor Swift into the battle in both records, in Push-Ups and TaylorMade. He kept trying to like get her on his side. And for all intents and purposes, we don't know that Drake and Taylor Swift have much of a relationship. We know she has a relationship with Kendrick. Her and Kendrick have mutual respect for each other. They've done records with each other. So the fact that he kind of wanted to make her a centerpiece of this record in order to try to get her fan base to lean towards his side, right? That kind of shows that you were a little bit scared and worried about what was coming your way. So you were trying to get out in front of anything Kendrick was going to drop, which means he had something on you. You know he did. See, this is where we get into the master manipulator part. Because what does Taylor Swift have to do with a rap battle at all? Nothing. You know, that's Drake again trying to be slick and conniving, and again always trying to just somehow interject some women into a dispute between men. And the way he finished the record, these verses, these lyrics, these bars will go down in history. When he was talking about how are you not in the booth, it feels like you kind of removed. You trying to let this ish die down. Nah, nigga. This time you following through. Boy, you want to talk about the worst lyric? These lyrics aged the worst in the history of hip hop. I swear to God. Because you want to talk about following through. Kendrick is probably about to be following through for at least through this year, probably into next year. However long they want to keep that tour going. You know, he might drop a deluxe, and you know that be the next leg of the tour. Come back to US, whatever. After they finish doing the work, who knows what they can do? They just have a myriad of options in front of them, right? So when he says, soon as you get the courage to drop, I'm out on the loose. On the loose. Not out on the loose anymore, are you? A year later, trying to figure it out. Dropping some loosies, dropping some records, some decent records too. That would have worked before all this happened, before the battle. The Cheerios record, I heard some of the records. They would have worked before. They're not working now. Why? Because no hip hop character. No respect for the culture. No respect for the people in the culture or the people of the culture. That's what this record showed more than anything when you look back at it. So let me know what y'all think in the comments below. What do you think of TaylorMade Freestyle a year later? You can still find it on the internet if you never heard this record. You should have heard it by now, though, if you clicked on this video anyway. Let me know what y'all think in the comments below, man. Hit that like button if you haven't hit that like button yet. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. Share this video. Tell a friend and tell a friend. Thank y'all for watching as always. Euphoria tomorrow, and we out.